There's a complicated sort of legal story going on today, isn't there, about Palestine? The Home Office is going to appeal to the High Court ruling against Palestine Action because they appealed the previous Home Office ruling that they would be a prescribed terrorist organisation. So there's a sort of appeal on an appeal. A bit complicated.
This is really quite unbelievable. This is an organisation which orchestrated £7 million of damage to fighter jets at RAF Bryce Norton.
Yeah.
Absolutely staggering that this should even be considered. These fighter jets save lives. They protect our country. Surely this is an act of treason as much as anything else.
Yeah. Well, you would think so. But the business of the law in this country seems to be a bit confused, doesn't it? Because we've got, on the one hand, a government which can make a law which can prescribe a terrorist organisation as a terrorist organisation, because that's not the only damage that they've done in various different locations around the country. You know, they could be easily described as a terrorist organisation given what they've done. So why on earth were they allowed to appeal that in the first place?
This is what I mean. It's absolutely staggering that this has been allowed. As you say, on the one hand, the government has prescribed this organisation for very, very real reasons. The organisation is trying to suggest it is not a terrorist organisation, but what constitutes an act of terror? Surely terrorising people, destroying aircraft, fighter aircraft, which are protecting this country. I'm bamboozled. The mind boggles, to be quite honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's the likely outcome of this? I mean, if presumably the government is able to appeal against the Palestine Action appeal, then it goes back to square one and they remain a prescribed organisation, right?
Well, yes, but presumably this process is going to take some time. I don't imagine there will be a decision overnight. They've won the right to challenge it, but I can see this remaining in the courts for some time. It's going to be a convoluted affair. I don't think it's something that will just be decided on the spur of the moment or overnight. It's very, very complicated.
And whenever they do now have a demonstration, it appears that hundreds of them get arrested, but I don't know whether you know the answer to this. Do they ever get charged? Do they get sort of, put through the system and then ignored? What happens to them?
Well, this is a very interesting situation. As far as I know, only a few people have been charged. So I'm not quite sure what happens to these people, whether they get off with a rap over the knuckles, whether they have a criminal record because they've been arrested. I've no idea. I don't think anybody knows, and I think we need really a freedom of information request to find out what's actually happening to these people.
Right. And I guess what does the future hold for Jewish people in communities now in this country, given the government's decision to recognise Palestine? Do you think it empowers these demonstrators and others to be more kind of anti-Semitic, if you like?
Of course it does. We saw this charade on Monday of the Palestinian embassy in inverted commas being opened. We saw David Lammy with his arms around a Palestinian leader, hugging him. I mean, Starmer's decision to make this decision virtually on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, was cynical at the very least. Right. The Jewish New Year started on Monday evening. This announcement was made on Sunday. Surely this was not coincidental, together with the actions of other countries throughout the world. It really is horrendous for the Jewish community. Of course, it empowers the demonstrators. It has empowered Hamas, because this was a reward for terrorism. That's the only way to describe it. They have received recognition as a result of what happened nearly 2 years ago when Hamas terrorists invaded southern Israel and murdered 1,200 people, and still have nearly 50 in captivity in their tunnels in Gaza.
Right. Do you find it puzzling that, only last week when Donald Trump was here, and I find it puzzling, that Keir Starmer came out, because he didn't want to say in front of Donald Trump that he was recognising Palestine specifically in public, he sort of made out that, Hamas would never take control of any government that he would deal with in Palestine. But he also then made the point that he's got extended family living in Israel. His wife's Jewish. Does that not sort of look slightly weird to you?
I can't make the man out. I really, really cannot make him out. He is certainly no friend of Israel, and as far as the Jewish community is concerned, he's no friend of the Jewish community or his cabinet for that matter. It's impossible to understand what he's thinking or what he's doing. from my point of view, and my personal point of view, I think my newspaper's point of view, is one of the weakest prime ministers I can remember in my 50-odd years with the Jewish Telegraph.
Yeah, it's a very strange situation. I can't fathom it either. But good to talk to you, Paul. Thanks very much indeed. Good to see you.